Hey guys, and welcome back. So this is Unit 7. We are getting into quadratics and some polynomials. And so in today's video, we are naming and adding our polynomials. And so this video is going to go through that. And I think I have another video for adding that I'm going to try and find as well. But hopefully I'll be able to get it done in this video. So the first thing we talked about in class is these parts, or what a polynomial is first. So a polynomial is a combination of variables, and we're going to use adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing to create our polynomials. And so we look, and we've been seeing these all along. And so this is just your general, just polynomial. And so getting into that, the parts are, the most important parts are the terms. So each of these pieces here is a term. So that's one term, this is one term, and this is one term. So that has a 3-term piece to it. The adding and the subtracting symbols are the things that break apart your terms. And those symbols are part of a term, but that's where you see the break in the pieces. We also are starting to talk about the degree. So up until now, we haven't really had any variables squared in our functions, in our expressions. But now we're going to start to see that. And the exponent, which is that little number in the air on the variable, is what is your degree. And in this class, everything will only have one different type of variable in the polynomial. So it'll always be the highest exponent. In later math classes, you'll look at what happens when there's more than one variable in a polynomial. The next piece is your leading term, and in standard form, the leading term will be first. But it is always a term with the highest exponent. So that's how you get that leading term and get it into standard form, is you look for the highest exponent. Big piece that we really need to make sure we know is that a coefficient is your number in front of the variable. So the 3 and the -4 are coefficients because they are in front of the variable. They're being multiplied by the variable. The 8 is not being multiplied by a variable, so it is not a coefficient. 8 is a constant. So the piece that doesn't have a variable is your constant, because 8 is going to be 8 no matter what. It's constantly going to be 8 because it's not being multiplied by anything. Whereas 3 and -4, their values are going to change based on whatever x is, because they're going to get multiplied by x. So that kind of gets you some more of a reason of why that 8 is constant. Because it doesn't have a variable, so it'll stay the same value. One big thing that is super important, you will use this in all of your math classes, is being able to write in what we call standard form. So every English, you have ways to write papers. In science, you have ways to write lab reports. In history, you have ways to write papers, and you have to document and all those things. Math, you have standard form, and everything has its own standard form. And you always want to write your answers in standard form. Even if they don't say to write it in standard form, you should write it in standard form. And so it's quite easy. You're just going to look at your exponents, and you're going to put them in order from greatest to least. You're also going to make sure that you don't have any like terms. If you do have like terms, then you should combine them. And so when you've got the exponents going from greatest to least, that makes your leading term actually be your leading term. And then you have no like terms, that's when it's standard. So my examples here, we have x squared and then no x. So that's least to greatest to least. And then x squared, x, no x. So that's, again, greatest to least. We don't have any like terms. Remember, our like terms have to be identical. So an x squared and an x are not like terms because they are not identical to each other. In my non-examples, you see that these are like terms, so that's why it is not in standard form there. And our x squared is not first, it's last. And that is why that's not standard. Just remember when you're moving things around in a polynomial to take the sign in front of it with it. So if I wanted to move my 4x, it's not a 4x, it is a -4x. So just making sure that you pay attention to those signs. So we talked in class about naming polynomials. You just want to make sure that you have this down. An example, so degree 0 is 0 because it's like x to the 0. which is 1. So there'd be no variable if it's a 0 degree, and that's why it's called the constant. Linear would be x. Quadratic is like x squared. Cubic is like x cubed. Quartic is x to the 4, and quintic is x to the 5. Beyond 5, we don't name them. We just give it kind of like 6th degree polynomial, 7th degree polynomial. Nothing fancy. Looking at your number of terms, we have, if there's only one term, then it's a monomial. If there are 2 terms, it's a binomial. If there's 3 terms, it's a trinomial. And then after that, we've stopped naming them. And we always put degree first and then number of terms, which is why I put those tables in that order, because it makes more sense to say a quadratic monomial than monomial quadratic. Unless you're a mathematician, it probably is all Greek to you, but generally we always say degree and then number of terms. It just flows better. So that's how you do that. So when you look at this example, you want to look at, when you're naming it, you have the degree and the number of terms. So first, looking at the degree, I see that my highest exponent is 2. So it is a degree 2. So degree 2 is quadratic. Then I look and I see that I have 1, 2, 3 terms. So that means that is a trinomial. So you find your degree and then you do your number of terms. When I look at 3, there's no variable. It's just 3. So that means it is constant because it has a degree of 0. There's no x value. And then I have 1 term, which means that it is a monomial. Looking at 6x, I see that there's no variable, there's no exponent on my variable. So remember, that's understood to be a 1. So that means that my degree is 1, which means it is linear. And then when I count my terms, I have 1 term, which means that it is also a monomial. And then in the last one, I see that I have an x again that has a 1. So my degree is 1 again, which means that one is also linear. And then I see that I have 1, 2 terms, which means that it is a binomial. So you need to name it for both. So just thinking about the degree, which is that exponent, and then the number of terms. Remember, it is always the little number, the exponent, not the coefficients that we name for our degree. So I'm going to end this video here, and then I'm going to make another one with adding polynomials. I hope this was helpful. Have a great day.